These are the front pads. ESP 1869. Here is the front rotors. ESD 822. First thing we're doing when we do the brakes, gotta take off the center cap. I just use this little tiny screwdriver. You're gonna hold one of them, sort of shimmy it out little by little, and there you go. Jack your car up, use a 19mm, take out your lug nuts. Once you get your wheel off, you're going to need to get this wire out of the way. It should be tucked behind your bleeder cover, so just pull the bleeder cover, move the wire, put your little cover back. Now you're going to use a 13mm on this bolt right here. This is the pin that holds the brake pads in. So you're going to take this out. Now pull the wire out of this little groove in the caliper. Push it out of the way. Now there's going to be in the back, there's going to be this little metal ring. That is this pin. So we're going to knock it out with a flathead or so and a little rubber mallet and push this out so we can pull the brake pads out. While you're taking the pin out, I found it's easy to, because this will try to get pinched, just unhook this from this metal plate and then pull it the rest of the way out. Then you can wiggle this thing out. Alright, now to get the sensor detached, just put a screwdriver in here and give it a slight tug. You'll hear a small click, and then you should be able to just push it down. You can do this before or after you pull the pin and all this, but we need to compress the pistons. So on this car, it's got pistons on both sides. So you just put a screwdriver in, because you're throwing these pads in the garbage anyways, so it doesn't matter. And you just pry against it. So that side's compressed. Now when you do the other side, it's going to slightly re-push out the other side a little bit. So what you're going to do is you're going to need two screwdrivers, and one on each side. That way when you push it, the pressure doesn't just transfer from one set of pistons to the other. You actually have them all compressed. Now you can just yank these pieces of shit out of here. As you can tell, this guy doesn't know how to check his brakes. And we're rubbing on the sensor. I'm not sure why the sensor didn't go off. Maybe the sensor's supposed to get worn out on purpose and then it'll go off. It seems kind of asinine to me, but yeah, we're gonna roll with it. You're gonna need to use a 6mm Allen head on this bracket because they wanted to be smart and use a hard line to the caliper and a flex line to the spindle. So this is a single 6mm Allen head. Now to get the caliper off and change the rotors, there's a 21mm here and a 21mm down here. You're going to take those off and the caliper will come loose because you took off that Allen head that was holding the bracket. Now luckily I have some people to help me, but once you get those big bolts out, the caliper will be loose. And the only thing you need left to get the rotor off is a T50 Torx bit. And once you pull that off, then the rotor will just slide right off. Alright, slide the rotor back on. Always start bolts by hand. Don't try to use a fucking power tool right away. And there you go, the rotor's swapped. Now slide your caliper back on and put your 19mm bolts in by hand. Once you get the bolts in by hand, grab a torque wrench and go ahead and torque these down to 120 foot-pounds. Now you're just going to slide the brake pads in like so. Set your metal plate with the clippy part down. You're going to take the fat end of this sensor. The fat end's going to go towards the rotor in both scenarios like this. So you're going to push it in this groove. And then you should be able to put it in with your finger, no problem. You'll hear a click. Then wrap this down and underneath like that. And then push this one in the same way. Clips in. This needs to straddle both brake pads. Don't have this shit all cockeyed like this, because not only will you be doing it wrong, but the guy that takes it apart to fix it's going to call you a moron. Slide the cable in through here on the caliper. Make sure you clean this pin off, and you're just going to slide it back in. You need to push down in the center of this to get the pin to go over it. And you're sort of just gonna wiggle it. Now when you're over here, there's two cuts on this bolt, and those have to slide in to that groove. Now you're gonna take your bolt, put it back in, use your 13mm socket, and tighten this one back in. After you get the bolt in, then you can run this up top over the bleeder, put the bleeder cap over it to secure the wire, take the connector and just press it up. It'll click. That's back in. Now we're going to take your 6mm bolt here and re-bolt in that bracket in the back. Now before you put the wheel on, you put greasy fingerprints over everything. So just spray it off with brake cleaner to get any oils off, and then put your wheel back on. Set your torque wrench to 100 foot-pounds, and you're going to torque in a 5-star pattern, which means you start here, skip one, go to the next one, skip one, go to the next one, skip one, next one, skip one, next one, and you're all good. Here are the rear pads, ESP 1871, rear rotors, ESD 1013. So the rears are totally different. There's a cotter pin here that you need to remove to get the pin out for the brake pads, like so. Once you have that out, you can just tap out the pin. So again, we're going to have to compress the pistons. So just use a screwdriver, jam it in. You're going to go in here, pull the two pads apart like so. Now it's ready to go. Your sensor again is going to be right here on this, on the backs. Put a small screwdriver in, twist it a little bit, and then it'll just come right off, and then pull it out. Now pull your wire out and all this shit will come flying out, and then throw the shit in the garbage. Now that you realize you don't have the right tool for this job, drive your ass to Napa, and it's going to be a M16 12-point. I called it a 12-point Torx. The other guy called it a triple square. But it needs to have 12 points, and it's 16mm. Okay? So now, go ahead, push this line. You need to get this out of the bracket. right here. That allows you to get your special bit and put it in here. You're gonna have one at the top, one at the bottom, just like the front rotors. And you're gonna have to use some man muscle to break this bitch loose. So grab a breaker bar and go ahead and break this loose. Once you get those two badass piece of shit bolts out of there, just pull this out, sort of rotate it, set it in the back here like that. It's on an angle where it shouldn't fall. If you're scared, put some tie wire around it. Then get your Torx T50 again, pull that out. And these are going to be a little bit less nice to you because it's got an e-brake behind it. So the new rotors are going to be worn less, right? So we need to close these to make them more loose. So when we put the new rotors on, it slides on better. It's still going to be tight when you slide it on. So you're just going to sit here, rotate this thing, and just keep rotating it till it hits the bottom. So depending where you bought your rotors from, I think Audi and Volkswagen try to be douchebags and make you buy their stuff from the dealer. So it doesn't quite fit. It's off by a little bit, and I already did this fix on the other side. Well, what I found was that above each hole they have this little lip, and that's hitting the lip on this rotor right here. So what I did was I just made this where it's flush all the way around, so it's an actual flush circle. I just used a sanding disc, and it worked out just fine. So now we're perfectly flush like this. It's a nice circle. Like I said before, hand start this because you don't want to cross thread it. And then you can put it in. And go ahead, grab your caliper. You're gonna slide it back over. Put those two nuts back in and torque them batches down. Now that you have the caliper torqued back in, slide in your new pads. Put your metal clip here. And now we're going to put the pin in. So you're going to push the pin in now from the back side. Make sure the smaller part of the pin is going towards the outside of the car. Push that down. You need to make sure you push the metal clip down. Grab a rubber mallet. Makes your life a little easier. Once it's bottomed out, you're going to use the cotter pin that was in there. You're going to put it through the hole to where the rod is in here. Once you have the cotter pin in, go ahead, take the thick side of the sensor that goes on the inside, push it in. Then on this one, you wrap it over, do the same thing here until it clicks. Slide it through the caliper like that, and then plug it in to the back side here. Don't forget to take this wire and slide it inside of this metal clip like so, and then push down on the clip. Set your torque wrench to 100 foot-pounds, and you're going to torque in a 5-star pattern, which means you start here, skip one, go to the next one, skip one, go to the next one, skip one, next one, skip one, next one, and you're all good.